Caribbean Newsline is brought to you by the Barbados Tourism Marketing, Inc.
The Trinidad and Tobago government calls for a criminal probe into activities by the former administration. Our top story in Caribbean Newsline for Wednesday, November 13th, 2019. From the CMC News Center in Bridgetown, I'm Dawn Paris. Good evening. The Keith Rowley administration says it wants authorities to launch criminal investigations into the services provided by the British-based political consulting firm Cambridge Analytica to the government of former Prime Minister Kamla Prasad-Bissessar. National Security Minister Stuart Young told a news conference on Wednesday that the probe was necessary following the publication of a book by Cambridge Analytica whistleblower Christopher Wiley. Wiley has gone on record to discuss his role in hijacking the profiles of Trinidad and Tobago citizens online in order to target them in the last general election on behalf of the United National Congress, UNC, led by Prasad-Bissessar. Reading from Wiley's tell-all book, Young said the act was diabolical and sinister. He said the People's Partnership government allowed the company to gain access through the country's telecommunications servers to tap in to see Trinidadians' smartphones and computers anywhere in the country at any time. Young says citizens should be alarmed the party now in opposition may have used data mining to spy on citizens and track their behavior leading up to the 2015 polls. The National Security Minister said that Wiley, by his publication, confirmed the breaches in the Interception of Communications Act, and the government is not going to take that lightly.
As the Minister of National Security, I have serious concerns. And today I'm letting the population know that I will be asking for the launch of criminal investigations into what has taken place. And parallel to that, along with the Office of the Attorney General, I will be seeking international recourse, meaning through the Attorney General's office we will make official requests for information, working along with the authorities. We are also considering the appointment of a special prosecutor and investigator to look into this, because this is extremely serious. And what is even more frightening is I have reason to believe this continues. I have reason to believe that the UNC continue to pursue this type of activity under our very noses. It continues to happen.
But in an immediate response, the opposition UNC in a statement said it was alarmed at the lengths to which senior members of the government would go to create a distraction from the many ills facing the country. The party denied any involvement with Cambridge Analytica and questioned whether either the National Security Minister or the Attorney General, Faris Al-Rawi, thought it fit to fact-check Wiley. The UNC said that the two had simply watched a show on Netflix and read a book and then came to the people of Trinidad and Tobago to claim they had evidence of some wrongdoing. The Ghana government on Wednesday announced a new increase in the minimum wage, along with other salary increases for public servants. In an address to the nation during which he announced the hikes, President David Granger assured public servants that the government was in their corner. He said Cabinet had met on Tuesday and deliberated on the proposals made by the Finance Minister and subsequently accepted them. President Granger said his administration will continue to pay keen attention to ensuring that emoluments keep abreast of economic changes in society so that public servants could maintain satisfactory standards of living. He said all of the increases will be retroactive to January 2019 and the back pay will be tax-free.
Public servants' minimum wage will be increased to $70,000 from $64,220 per month. This represents a 9% increase for 2019 and an overall increase of 77% since the APNU AFC coalition government entered office in 2015, when the minimum wage stood at $39,540. Sweeper cleaners in the public education system will now receive the new minimum wage of $70,000. Public servants earning between $100,000 and under $1 million will receive an 8.5% increase. Public servants earning less than $100,000 will also receive a 9% increase in their salaries. And public servants earning a minimum wage of $64,220 will receive in their December paycheck $69,336, a sum in excess of their base salaries. Public servants, including teachers, nurses, doctors, members of the Defense Force, Police Force, and the security services, will benefit from these permanent salary increases.
Staying in Guyana, one of the new political parties contesting the March 2nd, 2020 general elections is making some tax promises. Change Guyana on Tuesday promised to reduce value-added tax, VAT, by 2% and increase the income tax threshold by $35,000 just after the polls if they win.
On the proposal is the reduction of value-added tax to 12% and further to increase the income tax threshold to $100,000 per month in 2020.
The effective increase in income will allow for increased access to goods and services for the working class, which will boost consumption and improve quality of life.
That was the party's prime ministerial candidate Nigel Hines speaking at a weekly press conference at the Savannah Suite and Pegasus Hotel in Kingston, Georgetown. The party also wants to remove a VAT from electricity, water, smartphones and cellular data plans to ensure low-income families can also afford access to the internet. Included in its tax reform policies, Change Guyana wants to reduce the tax on the importation of non-commercial vehicles, repeal property tax, estate tax, and capital gains tax to attract local investors and implement tax credits. With the implementation of these measures, there will be a decrease in the government's revenue. However, the party's presidential candidate Robert Badal believes that there will be no deficit since the measures will encourage investments.
From all indications, economic experience, economic theory, that when you reduce taxes, you end up collecting more because especially in a country like Guyana where the income level is so low, you actually receive more because you tax more consumption rather than performance and productivity. And there is where we will balance the budget.
Badal said these measures were presented to the current government during budget consultations but were never taken into consideration. The party last week promised to end blackouts with the privatization of power generation. It has also touted tax incentives for teachers, nurses, and law enforcement officers.
That report from Fariza Hanif of Newsroom Guyana. The former chief of the Financial Services Regulatory Commission in Antigua and Barbuda, Leroy King, on Tuesday appeared in court in the United States in connection with Alan Stanford's $7 billion fraud at his bank in the Twin Island nation. His appearance before a U.S. magistrate judge in Houston, Texas, came a few days after he was extradited. The 74-year-old King was the last remaining defendant in Stanford's Ponzi scheme case. He'd been fighting his extradition since 2009. The indictment charges him with 1 count of conspiracy to commit mail, wire, and securities fraud, 7 counts of wire fraud, 10 counts of mail fraud, 1 count each of conspiracy to obstruct an obstruction of a Securities and Exchange Commission investigation, and conspiracy to commit money laundering. It alleges that King accepted more than $100,000 in bribes from Stanford in exchange for turning a blind eye to the fraud, and that he also assisted Stanford and others in obstructing the SEC's investigation into the bank. A federal jury found Stanford guilty in June 2012 for his role in orchestrating the 20-year investment fraud scheme in which he misappropriated $7 billion from the bank to finance his personal businesses. He is serving a 110-year prison sentence. An international arrest warrant has been filed for American Scott Hapgood, who was charged in the death of a hotel worker in Anguilla earlier this year. Hapgood refused to return to the British Overseas Territory for a scheduled court hearing on Monday, and the island's Attorney General said he was now considered a fugitive. The American is charged with killing 27-year-old Kenny Mitchell on April 13th while he and his family were on vacation at the resort. Hapgood claimed that Mitchell showed up to their room armed with a knife and demanded money. In the violent struggle that ensued, the hotel employee died and Hapgood was charged with manslaughter. The American's spokesman said it was progressively apparent that his client would not receive a fair trial in Anguilla, and that was why he was advised not to go back. And he cited safety concerns for his client's no-show. But Anguilla's magistrate scoffed at Hapgood's concerns, calling them totally groundless. He characterized Hapgood's court absence as willful defiance and said he would not allow Hapgood to evade justice. Meanwhile, Anguilla's governor, Tim Foy, said Hapgood should have no concerns regarding his safety, noting that Anguillans are law-abiding and peaceful people, as evidenced during his previous court appearances. The Barbados government says it has identified a serious social problem that's been reflected in the unprecedented number of homicides on the island. The comments from Attorney General Dale Marshall came on the heels of last Friday's stabbing death of a 16-year-old student by a 15-year-old at a secondary school. Marshall told reporters that the police commissioner had been meeting with the officials from the Ministry of Education to discuss a possible solution to violence in schools. Members of the Barbados Secondary Teachers Union and the Barbados Union of Teachers met to discuss the situation amidst concerns that there could be more killings in schools. Marshall said that the Mayor Motley-led government would be introducing new intervention programs for at least 500 of the most at-risk households in a bid to avoid a recurrence of last week's incident. He said the Ministry of Social Care will seek to get a social program in place so that those households can work their way out of difficulties.
What we're seeing is a growing number of young people involved in the taking of human life. This is the youngest one that we have at this point in time. But earlier this year, we had an 18-year-old and a 19-year-old and a 20-year-old. And if we look at the statistics, we will see that the average age of the persons charged with perpetrating homicides is dropping lower and lower and lower. Now, this is not about us and them. This is not about the government isn't doing. This is about how we as a society have failed our young people. I'm not going to portion blame, but you know, children are born of a household. And I really think that at some point in time we need to start to grapple with what that means.
Still to come, the president of the Public Services Association in Trinidad says sorry for his use of a racial slur. Stay with us.
Let your spirit take to flight. Let your heart run free and wild. Find your soul in Dominica, the nature
We continue in Trinidad and Tobago, where President of the Public Services Association, Watson Duke, has apologized for using the N-word at a press conference on Monday. He'd used the offensive slur as he called on public servants who have not yet received a pay increase since 2003 not to support the ruling People's National Movement, PNM, in upcoming local government elections. His comment drew harsh criticism, including from the PNM, which said Duke had described Afro-Trinidadians in the most offensive way. And Tuesday, Duke said sorry.
For those persons, whether it be those persons who genuinely do not understand my use of the word or the context in which the word was used, to those persons, I want to unreservedly apologize. I want to say I'm sorry. I acknowledge the word were a bit too strong, so I withdraw the word completely and unreservedly. Having made the point, having gained the attention, I'm now putting squarely on the table. We want our monies now.
And Duke made it clear the PSA will push a no vote for the December 2nd local government elections if the members do not get their money.
Whether Washington, wherever, public service, civil service, fires, police, prisons, army, coast guard, anyway, agriculture, BIR, customs, immigration, hospital, wherever, I'm calling upon you now to cast away that thing that they bring for you in the mail, say it comes from EBC, burn it.
In this week's Newsline business, the Bank of Jamaica takes steps to stabilize the country's dollar. Belize is taken off the European Union's list of non-cooperative tax jurisdictions, and CIBC sells its majority stake in First Caribbean International Bank. Here's Mary-Claire Williams.
The Bank of Jamaica intervened on Wednesday for the second time this week in the foreign exchange market with an offer of $30 million to be sold to authorized dealers. The BOJ says the move was necessary to address temporary demand and supply imbalances in the market. The central bank said it was done through the Bank of Jamaica's foreign exchange intervention and trading tool. It comes on the heels of Tuesday's intervention of $40 million, which was sold at a weighted average rate of $142.38. Meanwhile, the BOJ says it expects normalcy to return to the foreign exchange market following the interventions. A statement from the bank attributed the fluctuations to increased demand for foreign exchange currency due to regular restocking by retailers for Christmas. It said there has also been extraordinary demand relating to portfolio transactions. The European Union has removed Belize from its list of non-cooperative jurisdictions. The change follows a recent amendment to the country's International Business Act. Prime Minister Dean Barrow welcomed the decision and said government will continue to engage with the EU as well as the international business and financial sectors. CIBC has agreed to sell its shares in First Caribbean International Bank to the Colombian GNB Financial Group. GNB will purchase 66.73% of the shares, subject to approval of local regulators. CIBC will remain a 24.9% minority shareholder and will benefit from various minority shareholder protections as well as liquidity rights in respect of its minority stake. Mary-Claire Williams, Newsline Business.
Ahead in sport, West Indies head coach expecting his team to keep up the pressure on Afghanistan in their T20 International Series. We'll be right back.
When you think of what we went through with Hurricane Irma, you had to be able to recognize what are the things we need to do to cope with the aftermath. The psychological trauma, to me, is probably the most telling on a lot of people.
Preparedness is the key. So when people are prepared, when people have what their resources in terms of how they can cope with the disaster, they're better able to be able to return to their normal life. They're better able to make decisions that are informed for themselves and for their family, and then for their community. Be ready. Look, listen, and link.
On this edition of Caribbean Passport, we relive highlights of CarFesta 14's opening ceremony. Lots to do, lots to see as we explore Destination Barbados. And we continue our look into the Sustainable Tourism Conference held in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. All this and more right here on this station.
You may have heard that you should have disaster supplies on hand, but what should you pack? How to get started? And what maintenance is necessary? Disaster supply kits should include preserved or canned foods, clean water in sanitized containers, at least 5 gallons per family member per day, extra medical supplies such as insulin, inhalers, blood pressure medication.
The market is a bit saturated. I don't know that it's because we're graduating too many lawyers, because the fact still remains that a lot of graduates of the UA Faculty of Law don't go on to Norman Manley Law School and get their LEC. They find other things to do with their degree. A lot of people don't know all the options that they have with a law degree.
I don't think that we are. It may appear so, but the emphasis has to be on quality and not quantity. It's hard.
West Indies head coach Phil Simmons is expecting his team to apply the same kind of pressure they did on Afghanistan in the just concluded ODI series as they go into the T20 International Series starting Thursday. The West Indies are going into the 3-match series with confidence following their 3-0 whitewash of the Afghans, which brought an end to an almost 5-year winless streak. Simmons says the T20 squad remains upbeat ahead of their first game.
The attitude has been great. Can't fault them in the preparation. I think even today's the only day the T20 squad are together and everyone look like they're into things and they want to do well. They want to do well for West Indies cricket team. So that's been the great part that I've enjoyed so far. And let's see how we start tomorrow.
World champions not to take the Afghans for granted since they will play their A game. He hopes the regional side will be equally aggressive on the field.
Their game plan is similar. Their game plan revolves around mostly Rashid Khan and Mujib in the bowling and Asghar Afghan and a couple others in the batting. So it's going to be a similar game plan, but then we have to make sure that we as intense and up for it as we were with the ODIs. So counteract all their weapons, and then we have a chance to win.
Meantime, West Indies stroke maker Nicholas Pooran will miss the T20 series. That's because the International Cricket Council, ICC, hit him with a 4-match ban for ball tampering during the ODI series. The incident took place during the 3rd match on Monday. Television footage showed the 24-year-old scratching the surface of the ball with his thumbnail. The 2 on-field umpires, along with the 3rd and 4th umpires, reported the matter, and Pooran on Tuesday pleaded guilty to the charge of changing the condition of the ball. In addition to missing the 3-match T20 International Series, he will also sit out the first T20 of another 3-match series against India next month. Pooran issued an apology on social media. He said, quote, "I want to issue a sincere apology to my teammates, supporters and the Afghanistan team for what transpired on the field of play on Monday in Lucknow. I recognize that I made an extreme error in judgment and I fully accept the ICC penalty. I want to assure everyone that this is an isolated incident and it will not be repeated. I promise to learn from this and come back stronger and wiser." End quote. Meantime, Cricket West Indies President Ricky Skerritt says under-fire batsman Pooran must use the ball tampering incident as a learning experience. Skerritt said in a statement on Wednesday that Mr. Pooran is a young player who has made a grave error of judgment. He will suffer the penalty and will be missed from the team as a result. I'm confident that his situation will be used by Pooran and all concerned in CWI as a learning experience. Jamaica Scorpions captain Rovman Powell says his team's next assignments in the regional Super 50 will be a do-or-die situation despite their 97-run thrashing of combined colleges and campuses Marooners. Scorpions defended their mammoth knock of 330 after removing Marooners for 233 in 45 overs with brilliant performances by Asad Fudadin, who scored 92, and Rovman Powell, who made 57. Powell praised the team's efforts.
To start the competition and get your first point on the board. I think the batting unit stand up today. Still a little bit of concern as it regards the bowling in the first power play. As you can see, the guys get off to a flyer, but we pulled it back. But the batting really come good. 330 on any surface, we'll definitely take that. It's good that I've played in both teams. We scored 400 against Trinidad, and now 330 is a good accomplishment. It's just now for us as a team to continue to build on it.
Looking ahead to their next assignments, Powell stressed the importance of winning all their games.
Very, very important. Today was a do or die game. If we lost today, we'd be in serious problem in trying to make the semi-finals in Trinidad. So today is a do or die, and we also have the rest of games as do or die. It's important that we beat one of the leaders, whether it be Barbados or Leeward Islands. We have to beat one of them.
And that's the sport. We'll be right back.
Caribbean Newsline is brought to you by the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc.
As a small business owner, you have to make sure your technology is available and operational at all times. But what happens when your network crashes, your email goes down, or your user systems get a virus? You may try to fix the issue yourself, but you can end up making the problem a lot worse. At Digital Networking Solutions, we're more than just people who try to fix your computers. We monitor, maintain, and support your IT systems so that you can focus on growing your business to its fullest potential. When you sign up for one of our IT support plans, we get familiar with your IT environment beforehand, so we can manage it proactively as if it were our own. Your business deserves the best IT services available to ensure it functions to its maximum efficiency. So give us a try today. Email or call us, and we will give you a free network assessment to determine whether now is the time for your small business to adopt Digital Networking Solutions for a smoother, more reliable network experience.
Hi, I'm Brittany Dixon, and you're watching Finding Fit, the show where I pair up one client with two trainers. Trainer number one.
Oh my gosh.
It's about fitness, comedy,
I can do this all day,
drama.
In future, we cannot be late.
Inspirational stories, and so much more. You are gonna love it. You can catch Finding Fit prime time this fall on CaribVision.
Again, the major developments of this day, the Trinidad and Tobago government calls for a criminal investigation into services provided by a controversial British-based political consulting firm to the former administration. And in sport, West Indies head coach expecting his team to keep up the pressure on Afghanistan in their T20 international series. And that's Caribbean Newsline. For news and sport round the clock, subscribe to CanadaNews.com. For more of our programming, log on to CaribVision.tv and check out our YouTube channel. We'll be back here again tomorrow, but from all of us at CMC News, thank you for watching and have yourselves a good night.